Let's move on. All right, so you're a big draft guy, like your YouTube channel, which we'll get into in a bit. Like you scout players and stuff, you know. So like next year, I want to get an early look on next year's draft because I know a lot of things can change. A whole season can affect like a guy's stock. You know, I think Jabari Smith wasn't even supposed to be a top three pick going into next year, into last year's
He
draft. You know,
was
like
a consensus lottery pick, but he was more
literally.
so like 10 to 12. Some
Mhm.
some people here and there had him. There were some whispers of him being top three, but generally, yeah, he was considered, 10,
Yeah.
10, 10.
So, so who are some of your favorite prospects coming into next year's draft?
Well, I would say definitely on the freshman side of things. I love point guard Nick Smith from Arkansas. Went to North Little Rock, dominated. He played alongside Khalil Ware in high school. So I mean, I don't know many other, I don't know many other teams in the country in the past 10 years that have had the best point guard and center in the nation. So that team absolutely dominated the Arkansas basketball. But Nick Smith, more so on him, 6'4" guard, two-way player, very good. Not necessarily a great defender, but he's a feisty defender. Will pressure guards, from full court. Offensively, though, he has the potential to be a franchise point guard, not only at Arkansas but also at the NBA level. Awesome passer, great pick and roll player, can really pass with either hand. He has a lethal floater. He has the best floater probably out of anyone in this class so far, and I think he relies on it almost to a fault. However, he can also create his own jump shot. Good pick and roll shooter. Again, very good passer, crafty finisher. I have him third on my board right now, behind Victor Wembanyama and Scoot Henderson. And I think he's going to be in a situation in Arkansas where he's going to be playing alongside Anthony Black, a player that I have 19th on my board. And, that's no shame. I mean, it's
Mhm.
what, not even August yet. Anything can change. I know a lot of people are
Mhm.
really high on Anthony Black. Anthony Black, a combo guard, 6'7", tough defender, high IQ, gonna allow Nick Smith to kind of do more of the scoring while
Yeah.
Anthony Black takes that step, kind of takes the role of just being like that connective tissue. And they also have Jordan Walsh on that Arkansas team, another one of my favorite prospects. Really showed out this year at Geico
They're gonna be
Nationals.
stacked next year.
They are stacked. That Arkansas team is going to be must watch, especially for the draft. And
Mhm.
Jordan Walsh is a guy that I really like, a 6'7" wing, really athletic, 41-inch vertical, can knock down some open threes and can handle the ball a little bit. Does a great job. He's just a very versatile wing. Can dump off to his big men, throw up lobs to them. Does a good job, passing out to open shooters. Very versatile defender. Just what you'd want at the NBA level in your forward. A little bit of handling, shooting, defense. I also really like Traquavion Smith. He's a returning player. Was a really high riser late in the draft scene this previous season. Played for NC State. That team was pretty bad, one of the worst teams in the ACC. However, Traquavion Smith was the man on that team. Him and Darion Searon, who went undrafted. I believe he's with the Pelicans now. But Traquavion Smith led the ACC in threes attempted, hit them at a 37% clip. 6'4" with a 6'10" wingspan, very lanky, tall guard, sharp shooter. And I had him top 25 on my board this previous draft season. I am a really big believer in him, and I think he showed out for during the draft combine. And I think the ultimate decision for him I'm almost pretty much guaranteeing that he probably had some teams approach him in terms of him having a solidified draft position in
Mhm.
this year's draft. So for him to back out and decide to commit to the 2023 draft, that's a big bet on himself. I think
Yeah.
he's the best returning player in the country as far as from a draft perspective. I'm expecting him to take a big jump if he can develop, more so as a finisher and as a playmaker for others. Then I think he's again. I have him eighth on my board right now. Again, I think he's the best returning player in the nation. And again, if he can improve on his finishing and playmaking, I think he can really solidify himself, as a top 10 pick and potentially even higher. Another guy that I really like, I'd say, is Baba Miller. Played overseas, and is 6'11" guard, 6'11" guard. Is really a 6'11" point guard. I mean, he's very good playmaker, can slash, solid defender. I think the shot is a little bit of a question mark, but I think the form is fine. I think it'll work itself out over time. And what I really like about Baba Miller is that, again, I mean, a 6'11" point guard, and I think I talked about it with one of the members of the Spurs during SBC, where a player like
Mhm.
Nikola Jovic from this previous draft, where a
Yeah.
European player kind of stayed overseas. and we didn't necessarily get to see how he would look against
Like
competition
America, yeah.
in America, right? So I
Okay.
really like that Bob Miller's deciding to come over here. He's going to play for FSU with another prospect that's highly touted, or he's a returning sophomore. His name is Matthew Cleveland, 6'7", shot creating guard. So they're going to form a nice little duo. FSU is going to be really
Wow.
talented. This another team to watch. Yeah. Uh, Also, some other teams or some other players, I really like Arthur Kaluma as far as another returning guy. He's going to be playing. He played for Creighton this previous season, 6'7" wing, very athletic. Uh, Showed some shot creation upside during the tournament. Very good defender, and he really made a name for himself during the tournament. And he kind of carried that momentum over into FIBA play. He played for the Ugandan team in FIBA, I believe, for the U20s, where he showed out against some decent some former NBA players. So he's a guy to keep in mind for this upcoming season. Some other guys that I do like, Dariq Whitehead, a guy that I know
Yeah.
personally, grew up with him, or didn't necessarily. I've been working out with him for a very long time. He's from Newark, same city as me. Guy that I'm a big fan of. Maybe I'm a little bit biased with him, but I'm trying to be as unbiased as possible. But he was the man for a Montverde team that was very talented. They also had
Like
Dylan Mitchell
play
on
with
that team. The
Cade.
guy, yeah, yeah. He's been playing for Montverde since eighth grade. He's been playing. He played with RJ Barrett. He played with Kate Cunningham. He played with Scotty Barnes, with Deron Holmes, Caleb Houston, who just got drafted last year, 31st, right? So
Caleb Houston.
Dariq,
I'm sorry to cut you off real quick. I think Caleb Houston
no,
was
no,
a
no.
steal. Man,
I
I watched his
agree.
game so
I
much,
agree.
man. I don't really watch college basketball, but like SBCs, you specifically too, like inspired me to like start looking into like scouting and looking into like the future talent, bro. Like Caleb Houston was one of the
I like
guys that
Caleb
I had
Houston.
watched
Yeah,
before. Like I think he's gonna have a good career, like as a good role player, like guy that can probably come off the bench and
I
give you just
agree. I
solid
agree.
minutes, So yeah,
I
continue with
think he's
Derek
a
Whitehead
good
though.
fit for that Orlando core. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
So Derek, I mean, he's been kind of waiting for his turn to kind of take over and be the man for that Montverde team, and he got the opportunity to do that this previous season. And he played alongside a guy in Dylan Mitchell, who I have 12th. I have Derek Whitehead ninth on my board. I have Dylan Mitchell 12th as of the recording of this video.
Another
Uh,
D Mitchell in the draft.
yeah,
Got
yeah.
Davion Donovan, man.
Yeah, and Dylan Mitchell's gonna be good. He's playing for Texas. They're gonna have a good squad. But Derek got the chance to play alongside Dylan Mitchell. Also, the number one power forward in next year's class, a guy who I thought was the best, got very talented player, and Kwame KJ Evans. But Derek got the chance to lead that team, be the man on that team, and he showed out and he carried them to a guy going Nationals title. Two-way player, can do a little bit of playmaking. We saw that. Also the McDonald's All American. Yeah.
Mhm.
Got my words out. But we saw him lead that team, kind of be the point guard out there amongst, a bunch of other future, high-end college players and NBA players, kind of be the man. Good scorer. I think the only thing with Derek I would question as to why I don't have him higher is the shot. I think the form could use a little bit of work, and also I think the handle needs to be polished. But outside of that, I mean, Derek is going to be a very talented player. And for Duke, and Duke is also another team very stacked next year. They have guys like Derek
Oh,
Lively, who I
yeah.
is the third best center right now. I have him third, neck and neck with returning sophomore Deron Holmes from Dayton. But I really like Derek Lively's game. A lot of
I
people
like
have
him
compared
too.
him to Mobley. Yeah, he's much more of a versatile big compared to Khalil Ware, his counterpart, who's going
Yeah.
to Oregon. I think Khalil Ware is much more of your traditional big, whilst Derek Lively
hmm
is much more
And w-
a bigger wing than a big outright.
what I've heard from like some of these players like Lively and Khalil Ware, like they're being overshadowed by Victor. Like
Yeah,
Victor's
no,
the
and they're
big
very
talk.
good success. Yeah, like I think Khalil wears the best of the bunch for this year's class of centers. I don't think Khalil Ware is quite on the Evan Mobley or Chet Holmgren tier.
hmm
I don't. Is he better than Wiseman? Would I have him over Wiseman? I mean, it's tough. If you were to say it right now, before either of them have played a college game, definitely Wiseman, just because of how dominant he was in high school, right? But that doesn't mean Khalil was not a great prospect, and I think he does have a lot of things to like about him, with the shot, with the defense, with the shot blocking, the rim protection, the rim running. And I think with center prospects in general, I think a lot of it goes underrated. Like I've seen a lot of people say, like, oh, well, Jalen Duren, like he doesn't do anything special. And it's like, I feel like once you watch hours and hours of tape of like 10 center prospects in a draft class, like those little things about centers are like what really makes the difference. Like everybody's like,
Yeah.
oh, Jalen. Like I've seen people on Twitter be like, oh,
Mhm.
Jalen Durant just catches lobs. I'm like, Jalen Durant was the best vertical spacer. Like you could like have being able to have a center as a guard where you can just throw the ball up anywhere near
That's
the rim and they
huge,
can go
man.
get it. That's very valuable compared to a guy that you can't do that, right? And even
Mhm.
defensively, what he brings as a rim protector and as a he showed flashes as a passer at the short roll. Like I feel like a lot of things with centers are taken, for granted just because they're
Uh,
not looked at as like skilled
yeah,
or
literally. I
whatnot.
think it's overshadowed by also like 3-point spacing. If a guy can't shoot a three, automatically he's viewed as like a negative asset. Like floor spacers are vertical spacers are huge. Like Dave DeFore, Dan Purcell, like
Yes,
huge on them. Like vertical spacers,
yes,
like guys that can jump high over the goal where it's like you're like the most efficient shot in basketball is a layup or a dunk,
yeah,
like
yeah,
you get guys that can do that and jump over people and like it's just so overlooked, and overshadowed and yeah, so some of these centers, these prospects do a lot more than what people think. It's like if you watch like a basic standard highlight tape, it's not going to really show you much. Like you don't really see the little
exactly,
things unless you
exactly.
watch hours and hours and you compare it to other centers too. Like if you see, all right,
Yes,
this guy doesn't
yes,
really do
that's the
this and
thing.
that.
Yeah,
It's huge, bro.
yeah.
It's
I
huge.
mean,
That's why you got to do
yeah,
your
like
homework.
that's exactly, exactly. It's something that you take for granted until you actually, sit down and you
Hmm.
watch all these players, like just watch as much games of each center prospect as possible. And you're kind of like, oh, well, a guy being able to just go up and grab a ball anywhere near the rim or being able to get to any shot around the rim, that's
Hmm.
and have a motor to do that consistently. Playing on, Jalen Durant wasn't on, the best team last year, talent wise. He didn't necessarily have a point guard. Penny Hardaway was kind of using Amani Bates as a point guard, who's
Yeah,
another guy I think is going to improve a little bit this season. I think more on, a little
he
bit on Amani
transferred to Money
Eastern Michigan.
Bates, Eastern Michigan. Yep.
Eastern
Okay.
Michigan, yeah, and he's a guy who I like. 6'7" shot. He's not a point guard though. He's just not a
Yeah.
point guard. Not a game.
Hmm.
He's never been a point guard. He was 17, supposed to be a senior, and you're forcing him into a role that he's never played before against guys that
Yeah.
are bigger, stronger, and older. Like, of course, he was going to struggle in that role. So I think if
Mhm.
Eastern Michigan plays him to his strengths as a shot maker, as a spot up guy, maybe some pick and pops here and there. Even though he is 6'7", he's
Mhm.
still a lengthy 6'7". Play to his strengths and kind of let him just be the player that he's been in high school, then I think you can see a little bit more from a guy like Imani Bates. Some other guys that I do like, I'll just mention some returning guys since I feel like most people know, your typical incoming freshman class. A guy like Harrison Ingram, a forward for Stanford, was a first round pick pretty much consensusly throughout the year. Kind of fell off a little bit at the end. Stanford was not a great team. However, Harrison Ingram kept them in games a lot of time.
Mhm.
Very impactful two-way player, very good help defender, very good offensive player. Just makes a lot of winning plays, and I think he's a guy who might get overlooked in the upcoming draft cycle. However, I think he has a very good chance to make an impact on whatever team he does end up with, presumably next season. Also, a guy like Julian Strother from Gonzaga, who's kind of been, a role player for the guys like Drew Timmy and
Yeah.
Suggs and Hogan and Joel Ayayi over the past couple of years. However, I think he's really going to finally get a chance. He's just a super efficient shooter, solid defender at 6'7". I think finally he's going to get a chance to kind of, operate with the ball in his hands a little bit and kind of showcase what he can do, as a two-way player. And also a guy like Marcus Sasser, who was one of the best, in my opinion, he's one of the best guards in the nation. Missed a lot of the season for Houston with a foot injury, I believe, off the top of my head. But he was a guy who was a consensus, top 40, 45 pick coming into the year, got hurt. And he came back, for the draft combine, or the G the what was it? I forgot the name of it. The G League combine before the draft combine.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and he showed out. He did his thing, and he decided to return to school for what I believe is his junior season. Yeah, his junior season on
Mhm.
top of my head. And not only that, I think Houston's going to be a problem this year, and I think he's going to lead that team. And if he can take them to be a Final Four team, he's got decent size at the point guard spot, good shot creator, good shot maker as well. So I think, if he puts it all together and can lead this Houston team, I think there's a good chance that he is a pretty high pick when all is said and done next year. Just throwing out some other names here: Chris Murray, Keegan Murray's little brother. Pretty much, Keegan Murray 2.0 from a physical profile point of view. He didn't get to do much with the ball in his hands this previous season just because Keegan was there and Keegan was a top tier player in the country.
Yeah.
So I think Chris Murray, maybe I have him 41 just because he is Keegan Murray's brother, but I think that he has a lot of potential, and I think he can break out this upcoming season. Also, a guy like Mike Miles was a point guard for TCU, was expected to take a big jump last year. However, he kind of struggled with his efficiency. He played for the Team USA or FIBA for the U18s. He was the point guard on that Kenny Lofton, Chet Holmgren team that beat
Mm.
Wembanyama in the finals, in the FIBA finals. Was solid there. So a lot of people were like, can he translate it over to the season? And he showed flashes here and there. He's about 6'1", so not the tallest guy, but has real upside as a shot maker, and showed out in the tournament. TCU and Kansas kind of went back to kind of traded blows for blows there. I believe in not the Sweet 16, but round 30, in the round of 32. So he showed out, and hopefully, if he didn't put it together last year, but if he could put it together next year, I think he has a good chance of getting drafted. Scrolling through my big board here, trying to see other names to other returning guys. Uh, I think that's about it with returning guys. I mean, we could talk about the Thompson twins.
I was gonna ask you. That's like so I seen your tweet the other day. And you're not really high on them, but
No,
I
I'm
I like what's his name? Amen. I kind of like him a little
yes,
bit
I
more
like
than
them.
these
And
other.
yes,
You
I
know what I'm
agree.
saying?
I agree. My whole problem with them is that I've said it before. I said it in my G Montero video where I can't take overtime leads seriously. I mean, this is like D3 D2 level comp. I mean,
Yeah.
they have, with all due respect, they have Kai Sinat and Agent Zero, covering a game. Like I'm struggling to take it seriously, right? And
Yeah.
there's not really structure. And you saw it with a guy like G Montero in summer league, where you could just tell that he was just overwhelmed with just the level of
Yeah.
talent
Mhm.
and just the cohesiveness of
It's a
everything that
different
was going
game,
on around.
bro. It's a whole different
Yes,
game, dude.
and yes, and I get it with Amen and Asar. I love Amen a lot more. I like Amen a lot more than I like Asar, and I think Amen. I think he's a better playmaker. They're both uber talented athletes. I like both of them as defenders. However, the offensive game, just with I think the handle for both of them could use some work, and also just the shot. I mean, the shot for both of
Yeah.
them. Not only is the shot just not gonna fall, but they need mechanical, like there are mechanical flaws in their
Yeah.
shots. And not only that, but when they played in the basketball tournament, and that was decent competition. Older guys that are kind of more so past their playing days.
Mhm.
And even then, they looked lost here and there. So I'm just like, are they talented as athletes? No doubt. Do they have skill sets that will translate? Yeah, but they have major flaw. The shooting is going to be a major issue, and I also think that just they might just be so behind the rest of the pack in terms of their IQ and being able to process things and just understanding what's going on, that it might hurt them. And I feel like I feel like there's a good chance that come draft day, like I have Osar 13th, I have Amen 13th, and Osar 18th. I feel like that's a realistic expectation for them to fall come draft
Mhm.
day. And again, we saw it with G Montero this period. G Montero came into the season a top 20 pick, dominated against Team USA in FIBA play, dominated his age group. Even he dominated overtime elite. He was the best point guard in overtime elite, and he went undrafted and looked so to lost at times with the Knicks in summer league. So I feel like that's something that we could see happen with the Thompson twins. Also, a player like Gigi Jackson, who just recommitted. He was a senior that decided to decommit from North Carolina, move up a class to the 2022 class, and is playing for South Carolina now. A player who I
Okay.
really like, who I can see rising. 6'9", strong big man. Excuse me. He plays more so like a big man at 6'9" than he does a wing, but he does have some ball handling and shot making upside, and he's a guy who I could see being a big riser come draft day. Also, a guy like Jarris Walker, he played for IMG alongside another stud in Keontae George, who are both, I have both of them top 10. Jarris Walker, 6'7, 225, great ball handler, awesome defender, has some shot making. And again, he's playing with Houston with Marcus Sasser. So I think that that Houston team is going to be really, really something
Yeah,
to
a
talk
lot of good
about. And
teams out here,
Houston,
man.
yeah, and Houston's been a team that's been knocking on the door for a championship for a March Madness banner for a couple of years now. So I think next year might be the year that they finally break through. But you play with a guy like Keontae George, Jarris Walker, again, just a prototypical forward, what you want out of a forward. And also a guy like Keontae George. I mean, Keontae George is your shot makers. He's your Hooper's favorite prospect, pretty much. You know, Keontae George is the guy that's gonna go out there. He's the guy that's gonna go out there and just get buckets. Smooth shot maker, gets to his spots at will, great shooter on and off the ball, has shown some flashes as a playmaker too, and is just a strong, high IQ player. He's going to be playing for Baylor this upcoming season, which is something that I really like, going to a stable, well-oiled machine over there,
Hmm.
and surrounded by a lot of defenders, a lot of talent,
Yeah.
where he's be able to showcase there. He's not going to be asked to do too much. He's just going to be asked to do what he's good at, right? We saw that again. We just talked about, I just mentioned Imani Bates. He was kind of forced out of his
Hmm.
role. Like, no, Keontae George is going to go to Baylor and they're going to be like, dude, you can score the ball. You go get you here, you take the rock and you go score. And
Yeah.
I'm really excited to see how Keontae George
That's
looks
so
over there.
important
Uh,
for prospects,
yeah,
man.
yeah,
Like in
yeah,
anything, this right situation, like you need just being in the right situation can change the landscape of everything, you know. So a
yeah,
lot of good
yeah.
prospects
And I
going
feel like
into the right situations.
Yeah, I feel like it's just important to put these guys in situations where they're going to succeed. Like if Keontae George goes to Baylor and they ask him to be a point guard and run the offense, he might not look as good as opposed to
Yeah.
if they have this playoff ball and just be like, just go score. You're gonna see him, flourish over there for Baylor. So I feel like just
Hmm.
situation is so important. Also another guy that I'm not crazy high, Leonard Miller. He was supposed to come out this previous draft. He's like a 6'10" point guard, pretty much. I think he's
Yeah.
very raw. We saw that in the draft combine where he was just very, like, you could just tell that he was out of he he was just way out of his head, way out of his league. Got to play for overtime, not overtime, the G League Ignite this upcoming season. I feel like
Yeah.
he's a guy who potentially show out with proper development and kind of let him grow as a ball handler and as a shot maker. But he's just a guy that's very raw. But another guy that I could see really rising up draft boards
A lot of good
coming.
prospects here, man. Like I
Yeah.
said, man, this is gonna be my first year covering like college and stuff and like college teams. So as we wrap up, I wanted to ask you, like, for people that are watching this, like, how, for me in general too, like, how would you get into college basketball? How do you follow? Because there's so many teams, so many different players. What is your go-to strategy for like keeping up and just paying attention more to the college?
Well, I'll say this because that's that's also something that I am learning how to do. But I also there's just a lot of tools that you just have to use. We have the internet now. We're in a day and
Hmm.
age where we have everything at the click of a button or the touch of a screen. So I would suggest the Draftmatic, that YouTube channel. I use it a lot. He reposts pretty much full college games daily. He reposts them daily, all the big games from the previous day. So I really use that. I would also suggest another channel, the Scouting Report, not like report like REPORT. It's RARRPORT. So I would definitely
Oh,
suggest
oh,
those
okay.
channels. They're very useful in terms of being able to keep up with the games themselves. I would also just follow all the games like on Bleacher Report or like the app, or like
Hmm.
just follow as many college teams as possible and to just stay in the know. And also just Twitter isn't necessarily the best place to have conversations, but just to be on Twitter and to follow the right people. Like, I would say Draft Dummies on Twitter is very good. I would also say just following other people in the draft community, such as Raphael Barlow. He does a great job over there at NBA Draft Junkies. A guy
Hmm.
who I really like and I really respect. Also, Sam Vecine. He has his own podcast that's very good, and also the Draft Express. Just keeping up with different outlets like that to kind of see who's what. and then being able to go from there. Like, and then just keeping up with the game as much as possible. Like, watch as much as you can as when it's live, and try to record. You know, if you guys are at home, I would say definitely try to record as many games as possible because watching games live, it's a lot harder to kind of remove your emotion from it and be able to just stop and play, stop and play, stop and play because, since it's live. So I would recommend recording. It's going to take up a lot of space on your DVR, but try to record as much as possible, and yeah, just try to keep up, on Twitter again, like on Bleacher Report, just do pretty much everything you can to try to keep up. And it's a lot. I'm not gonna sit here and act like it's easy. It's very challenging to keep up with all these colleges, and at the same time,
Yeah.
as a draft guy, keep up with everything happening in the NBA because I can't sit
Mhm.
here and recommend, I don't know, let's say I can't sit here and recommend like Jalen Duren to, I don't know what team has a center that was in the lottery. Oh, you get what I'm trying. I can't
No,
recommend
yeah, I get what you're
a
saying.
prospect for a team when that team already has that
Mhm.
kind of player covered. So it's a lot. I'm not gonna say, and you also have to keep up with overseas and overtime now and the
Yeah,
G League, right? It's a
it's
lot. I'm not gonna sit here
expanding.
and act like yeah, it's a lot, but you just got to try to do as much as you can. And again, I would really recommend following other bigger draft accounts to just kind of help keep your thoughts together. And again, just try to follow again. I just as much as possible. Just try to do as much as you can, in order to watch games. So I really recommend the Draftomatic on YouTube. Big huge account. I use that YouTube account a lot to watch games, and also just on ESPN. ESPN has like playback, so they have
Yeah,
on DVR that you can watch, on your phone, on your computer, or whatever, that you can go back and watch. You can stop and play and stop and play, like the Thompson Twins. Probably the only time that we will ever see the Thompson Twins over the next year play against real, not even necessarily real, just average to decent competition was that last day that we were in Vegas, and it was
yeah,
on ESPN. They have it on demand. So on the flight, I downloaded the video onto my computer, watched it on the flight back home, and that's what I did. So I would say just keeping up with as much as possible, and just making sure that you're in the know, and just follow as many people as you can. And
yep,
there's nothing wrong with admitting that other people know more than you, and just following them
yeah.
and asking them for advice, and just heeding the knowledge of other people that know more than you. So yeah, that's what I would say.